Good morning. If I can get this set. There we go. All right, so Psalm 23. When we look at it, it's the most well-known psalm in the Bible. One of the most well-known passages in the Bible. People know it by heart. It was written by David. David had once been a shepherd, before becoming king of Israel. And because of that background, the imagery of the sheep and the shepherding, it's personal and it's meaningful. And the book of Psalm, contains songs, prayers, poems, widely used in worship. And it emphasizes God's care and His protection and guidance, even during danger and hardships. And historically, when we think about shepherds, we think about in ancient Israel, they were responsible for leading the sheep to food and water provision, also from protecting them from other animals like wolves or other predators, and caring for them when they're sick or when they have they're injured or weak. And David uses this picture to describe God's relationship with His people. And so the overall theme of Psalm 23 is God provides lovingly, and He protects, and He remains faithful to His people throughout life. Now, we look at verse 1, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. David's comparing God to a shepherd and himself to a sheep. The shepherd provides everything that we need, everything the sheep need. And he's expressing complete trust in God that He will provide for him in everything that he needs. And when he says, I shall not want, he's not saying that he's never going to desire anything, but what he's saying is God will supply everything that is truly necessary. God's going to provide what we need. God doesn't provide what we want. Sometimes He does. Sometimes we get our wants, but He provides our needs. And verse 2, He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Green pastures, we think about peace. We think about rest. We think about safety. And sheep will only lie down when they feel secure. If they don't feel secure, they're going to be restless. They're not going to lay down. And David is teaching that God gives rest and peace to those who trust in Him. He not only just provides survival, but He provides refreshment. He provides care. And verse 3, He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for His name's sake. God restores our spiritual strength. We don't only need physical strength. We need to have our spiritual strength restored and renewed. And because we become weary, we become discouraged. Satan will bring in those doubts and discouragement. It's one of his greatest tools is discouragement. And the path of righteousness refers to living according to God's will, not our own desires, but God's desires and will. And He and His Word will guide us morally and spiritually, because He is, above all, He is holiness, and His character and His reputation are connected to His faithfulness. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for Thou art with me. And so during personal suffering, the valley of the shadow of death, it represents times of danger, times of fear, times of suffering, or times of uncertainty, or times of hurt. And David does not say, we will avoid those things. No. Instead, God's presence during those times, that's what's going to bring us through it. God's not going to, we're going to have hardships, but God is going to be with us. And his presence is going to bring us through those times of hardship. And the rod and the staff. Shepherds used the rod and the staff for protection. One, against, wolves or predators, and also for guidance. God will protect us, but he will also discipline us and guide us in the direction we should go. So the rod is symbolizing not only protection, but also discipline and guidance. And thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. So David's shifting here to from a shepherd to a gracious host. So God provides blessing and honor even when enemies are present. And you see, it says anointing with oil. That was associated with welcoming or blessing and joy in the ancient cultures. The overflowing cup symbolizes that God's abundant blessings in our life is a generous God. He will make our cup overflow with blessing if we live in his ways. In verse 6, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Goodness and mercy. That's God's covenant love and his care to dwell in the house of the Lord. It points to ongoing fellowship with God, both now and forever. And, I think the application of Psalm 23 is that we're to trust God during the good times and the bad times. During those peaceful seasons of our life when things are going good, or when they're not going good. I think about that song, for the God of the good times. He's still God in the bad times. The God in the valley. He's God on the mountain. When we're on that mountaintop, things are going good. He's God. We need to have complete trust in him. A lot of times we tend to forget about God when things are going good. And we rely on him when things are bad. But we need to rely on him in all times, because those good times, they're from him. Everything is from him, is through him, and to him. He's the source of all things. He's the sustainer of all things. And he's the goal of all things. Everything is for his glory. The good times are for his glory. The bad times are for his glory. So, David is saying here, when we are facing fear, stress, hardship, we can always remember God does not abandon his people. Just as a shepherd, he's not going to abandon the sheep. He goes after that one. He will guide and protect us in all seasons. And we need to rely on him daily. Things are going good, give him praise. Everything. We need to get into a habit every single day. Every situation that we encounter, we need to ask this question. How does God get the glory from this? When those bad things happen, when someone makes us mad, when we are angry, we should stop immediately and say, how does God get the glory in this situation? Every situation. And so I think that this psalm is just reminding us that we need to depend on God daily rather than relying on our own strength and understanding. Because we can do nothing, but God can do all things.